Mr. Rick Berube.
Here he is.
Hi,
Hey,
Rick.
Mike, how you doing?
You know what, Rick, before we start, I was just thinking, gosh, we've known each other for probably 30 years, haven't we?
1990 was my first superstar retreat.
Yeah, gosh darn it. And I think about you're living up in that Northeast in that frozen weather and how great it is to be in the desert. So good for you. That's great.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I was going to also say that you've been doing this, what, for 45 years now, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, I tell a lot of people in my coaching program and so forth and within the company that when I started with you in the middle 90s there, when right about the time one-on-one was starting, and I had you as my personal coach for almost 2 years before I became a coach. Those are some of the best, most formative years of my life. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. But it's fun because I had nothing but good memories for the last 10 minutes thinking about all the time we had together for such a long period of time. And here's the good news. We're both alive. We're still and we're still productive. So hats off to you and I, that's for sure.
And so you still have hair. This is really good.
I want all of our listeners to know when you and I met, my hair was dark brown and you had hair. So look what's changed.
I had an afro. That's correct. Exactly.
So how many do you expect today with us?
I don't know. How many do we have? We're at 25 now. They're realtors, so I would multiply that times 2 probably,
okay,
or more. And some of them are watching with, I think, in computers on laptops and in their conference rooms. So there's probably even more than that.
Good. Well, are you going to record this? Because if you do, you can then let them replay it if you'd like.
Absolutely, we are recording it.
Good, because then they can watch it at their convenience. So good.
Absolutely.
And I think I sent you a series of questions that I'm being asked all the time, and whatever you choose to ask, I'll try to do the best I can to answer for you.
Okay, great. I'd love to we'll get started with that right now. So, especially with the people you're talking to, do you believe there'll be a decline in business as this pandemic continues?
I think, Rick, and here we are both Los Angeles based. I can almost see your headquarters from my kind of. I don't see anything happening on a negative basis at all. Okay, this is a problem that we're dealing with. The problem is being solved as we speak. But I think the interest, Rick, for all of us to understand is that in the United States today, and you and I, our experience helps us understand this. Worst case scenario, there'll be 4 million transactions in the US in 2020. That's worst case. That's 8 million commission checks will be distributed to real estate sales professionals in companies like yours. So I'm not concerned about the long term. What I'm concerned about is the mindset and the execution of the skills in today's market for these agents. Because, yes, we're doing less transactions in Las Vegas today than we did 60 days ago. But there's transactions, as you and I know, being done every day. So the question is, do you want to participate? So, Rick, I think, and maybe you can help me here, isn't there, 15,000 agents in Las Vegas Board of Realtors, something in that area?
Yeah, it's about 15,000. That's correct. Just about 15.
So I would bet if we took, you and I, and we can't, but if we took a look at 15,000 agents today, so my watch says it's 5 minutes after 10, I'll bet there's not 1,000 agents working, okay, out of 15,000, because most, and you and I have to deal with this every day, most agents are frozen, panicking, fearful, hiding in the closet, under the bed, because they're afraid to go out and work. So I don't see any long negative short-term effects because the mindset of the people is not as strong as you and I. And if their skills are weak, then they're afraid to go out and execute. So I don't see this as a long-term problem. I see it as a wonderful opportunity to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And just want to remind everybody, if you've come on and you've unmuted yourself, please remute yourself. I can hear a little bit of noise going on. And Mike, like I tell them, you mentioned the Northeast earlier, I tell them this was every year for me because I did 80% of my business in 7.5 months and 20% of my business in 4.5, 5 months every single year. So I called it forced seasonality.
But you know what? It's interesting. I remember when you and I had that discussion many years ago about the seasons.
Yeah.
And right after you and I had that discussion, is I started talking to our coaching clients and our coaches about what you had brought up because, living in the West, we have one season all year long, good. So we don't have seasons per se. And I'll never forget when you shared that with me, it really helped all of our coaching clients because the truth is, as you identified, even in a bad market, there's still good times. So right. I'm not concerned about the future. I'm hoping we can activate your agents today because most agents are not working.
Yep. No, it's true. It's a pipeline. Like Dan Mum, who's in your coaching, he's actually doing better. Rochelle Vinoy, same thing. When you're working, you're getting results right now.
That's right.
So, so what about a schedule? So in today's market, would you alter your schedule? What exact schedule would you recommend that they follow right now?
What's interesting about that, Rick, is that I've been in most of your offices and you guys have great law. You have a good environment for places for people to work. But see today, and of course yesterday, our governor said 15 more days of home isolation. So I'll share this, a personal story for Rick and I, and if the rest of you can chuckle about it, it's fine. But Rick, you've known my sons, Matt, Tom, and Pat forever. I mean, you guys grew up together.
Basically, yeah.
About 2 weeks ago, Matt sent me a text, and Matt says, Dad, when is the last time you were in your house for 45 days straight? What about it? And I wrote back 45 years ago was the last.
That's true.
Because years of my life is travel.
Right.
Life is hotels, airplanes, cars. So I think the biggest thing that the agents have to understand today is 45 days ago, they could come into the office, like Amanda's office, for example, people, and there was things to do and conversations and interactions. Let's go to Starbucks and let's get on Facebook, see what's going on. Let's check all that is history today. So today, my empathy goes out to all of those single ladies that are raising children in a single parent household, or even the ladies that are married with children, because all this balancing act that they have to do working at home is a big deal. So specifically, here's my recommendation. 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, all of your great agents have a little meeting with either themselves or their family. And then they say, I need 1 hour and 15 minutes to work so I can provide for the family. At the end of 1 hour and 15 minutes, I will then spend time with the kids, with my spouse, taking care of the house, whatever that case may be. Then I go back to work for 1 hour and 15 minutes. And I do, Rick, that 3 times a day. Rick, how many agents do you folks have now just in the state of Nevada?
In Nevada, about 1,100.
Can you imagine, Rick? I mean, you and Mark's eyes will get this big with excitement. Can you imagine if all 1,100 people in your company worked 3 hours a day, 5 days a week?
Yep. Billable hour work, yes.
Production would double. So what I'm asking is to coordinate with their household 3 1-hour segments a day where they do their job at the highest level with the privacy of their office, but they're in their home now. So the biggest thing is recognizing the difference in the environment.
Yeah, I agree. And absolutely. And I remember years ago when I started doing this with you, you introduced the time block concept for my prospecting time. But back then, I had to tell my family not to call me on the house phone because they weren't pagers, they weren't cell phones, they weren't the internet. I tell my kids that I started this before the internet, and they look at me like, there was before the internet? Oh, yeah.
But Rick, you and I this is fun for me. I'm sorry that the agents have to listen to some of the fun things that we've experienced, but our mutual friend, Steve Powers, who you've known for 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
Your agents are not going to believe this. Steve would come in at 8 o'clock in the morning to his office. He had an office where no windows. He would have his assistant lock the door from the outside so he could not get out until 11 o'clock.
I remember that.
He had to prospect for 3 hours. I mean, he would lock himself in. Well, as they say in New York, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. And Matt and Tom would chain themselves with those surfboard chains to their desks.
That's right.
And only go for bathroom breaks.
So scheduling is obviously vitally important. And I think that your agents are intelligent enough to do a little time blocking. And that's all they have to do to stay productive.
All right, cool. Thank you very much on that one. How about price drops? What do you think about prices dropping in our market?
Okay, so I bet between you and I and Mark, we have 150 years of experience in real estate. And
Yeah.
we've never had a time better than today, because with the inventory shortage, it's actually to our advantage. And I'll explain.
Yeah.
When there's an inventory shortage, as you and I know, prices remain stable. When there's an inventory excess, prices go down. So our greatest asset in real estate today is the shortage, because see, today, if I'm meeting with Rick, who's a potential buyer, Rick will say, well, is this the right time to buy? 100%. May I tell you why? With the shortage of inventory we have today, prices will only increase as time goes on. So you're much better off buying today than waiting for the future. So the shortage of inventory is this. You'll get a kick out of this. I went to 12 years of Catholic school in Orange County, California, and I was a lousy student. I'm the first to admit it. Remember the old grades, A, B, C, D, F. Well,
Right.
I D's and everything, and I thought it stood for my middle name, which was David. So I thought it was pretty good. But see, the truth is, I got one A in 12 years, and that was in economics. And that's when I learned about this simple thing of supply and demand. Our greatest asset today is almost anything your agents list today is going to sell, whether it be Arizona, California, or Nevada. It's going to sell. So the shortage is what stabilizes the prices. So I'm just hoping it stays short until this pandemic ends to keep the prices stable.
Yeah, and the interest rates definitely help too with the shortage of inventory. And the interest, I mean, people ask me, what's the interest rate today? I say, free. Historically, it's free.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so awesome. And so let's say, and this is the one I'm hearing a lot in my coaching as well, I'm sure you are, is the public's nervous. I want to wait till this is over and see what happens. What would you recommend they do with that one?
Well, one thing that we've all learned being in real estate, excuses are valid.
Yeah.
And if it's a valid excuse, there's not much we can say to change it. But what we can address, you and I, with all of our great students, the motivation is always the key to a transaction. If a buyer doesn't have to buy or a seller doesn't have to sell, it doesn't matter what I say magically, they're not going to buy and sell. So we're going to have today, and Rick, when I say this, I know you're going to chuckle, because when I say what I'm going to say next, you're going to think I've lost my head or I'm possessed. The key to today's follow-up is the empathy, the kindness and understanding we have for the people that are afraid. Because see, in the past, it was always, if they don't want to buy and sell now, most of us good agents would discard them and go on to the next.
Right.
Today, I want them to hold on to all those leads of those people that want to do something 30, 60, 90 days. Email, conversations, market updates, neighborhood reports, market stats. Keep informing these people, because in 60 days, when the floodgates open up, we want them to come back to your agents.
Right.
And they're going to come back to the ones they've communicated with. See, the scary parts about what we're dealing with, and I think what causes that almost constant, I want to wait. You knew in the Northeast, 3 months a year, snow was over your head. Right. We know in the South, hurricanes come 2 to 3 months a year. Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, tornadoes. Minneapolis, 7 months out of 10, you freeze to death. Seattle, it rains every day. Well, particular problem, we can't see it, we can't feel it, we can't touch it, we can't smell it. So we're a nervous society. The only way to calm the nerves is through furnishing information.
Right.
And that big group of people that we're furnishing information for today will become our advocate in 60, 90 days. So please follow up on all those leads.
Yeah, it's like golden rule meets prospecting, right? Like I intersect. And I agree with you, because you can't, people will even ask me, and I'm sure you've heard this too, how do you make somebody motivated? And I always go, do you have a gun? You can't make anybody motivated. They either are or they are not.
Yeah.
But if they're motivated, you can get them to use you, which is what you want to do.
That's right.
All right, good stuff. All right, social distancing. So we know we need to prospect, and we know we have the social distancing thing. So how should we handle that?
Okay, I got to tell you, this morning at 6 o'clock, I did one of these for a customer up in Montreal, Canada, 3-hour time change. And he took the question and changed it. He said, if my agents prospect, I went, time out. I don't want to hear the word if.
Right.
Okay. You and I don't have the word if in our language pattern.
No.
It's when they prospect.
Right.
3 people, past clients, obviously, centers of influence a lot. But here's what's fun, Rick, and you and I understand this. This little cell phone
Oh, yeah.
today is our greatest advocate because people are home, people answer their phone. Because, when you've been homebound for 45 days, talking to your dog is not a lot of fun. Talking to your cat gets old. Talking to your spouse after, a couple hours a day, you're looking for somebody to talk to.
Right.
So I want them to do 20 calls a day, just listed, just sold. 20 a day. Because here's what all the good agents are telling me. I call 20 people, I talk to 15. 90 days ago, I called 20, I talked to 5.
Right.
People wouldn't answer their phone. So if you can picture, I'm a neighbor of Rick and his family. So Sabrina and I are driving out of the neighborhood to go to the store, and we see a Berkshire Hathaway Home Services sign. The conversation in the car is always going to be, I'll bet our home is nicer. I bet we could get more than they could get. I wonder where they're moving to. Those conversations don't take place today because everybody's in the So we can initiate a lot of good news into a neighborhood by doing just listed, just sold. We're a neighborhood expert. We're bringing them information. They want to know what's going on. So let's be the resource center for every neighborhood in Las Vegas by making 20 calls a day. And by the way, 1,100 people making 20 calls a day, we're going to take all the listings in town. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. And, like somebody who, for me, where I was covering my 9 little towns, with the contact per dial ratio of today, this is the best in the history of real estate contact per dial ratio.
yeah.
What you just explained to them is incredible, actually.
I know you've probably shared with all your clients inside the company, but I can remember the conversations from 30 years ago when Rick would say to me, if I reach every person in the 9 cities, I'll talk to all of them 4 or 5 times a year.
Exactly right. Yeah, remember, it was like the example you gave, it was like painting the Golden Gate Bridge.
That's right. Once you get to the end, start over.
Start over. They get to know you that way. I had my farm, 9 towns.
That's right.
All right. So now this is interesting too, especially since when it comes to technology, I'm always catching up. The virtual part of our industry, face to face. How do you feel about that, and what does that mean to us?
Well, here I'm going to give you a scenario, and let's see. And here's the good news: you and I agree so on almost everything, and that makes it the easier relationship. So today I'm going to be showing at 10 o'clock Rick and his family property here in Las Vegas. So I say to Rick, we have 2 options today. We can spend the day looking at 6 or 7 properties that I've selected for you and your family, and it's going to take us 10 until probably 3 o'clock, maybe 4. Or what I can do, Rick, is when you folks get to the office at 10, I can show you all 6 properties on my computer virtually where you see the properties completely. Then we select the 2 you would like to see, and we can save you 4 or 5 hours. Which would you prefer? 90% will say, well, let's do it virtually, okay? So I'm making a statement today that some people have not thought was appropriate. I think within 6 months, after this has ended, the public will catch on that they don't have to spend as much time with real estate agents as they always have. They will demand that we speed and we have more efficiency. I think 50% of all deals will be done this way in the future, because today, the mountain resorts, the ski resorts, the beach resorts, it's all virtual business.
Right.
People like Jeff Quinton up in the Jersey Shore, Greg Harrelson, a longtime friend of yours down in the Carolinas, half their business has always been done virtually. So I think you and I have to lead the troops into the virtual reality. However, I will say one thing. You know, you and I are dressed for work today. You know, you look very professional. You always look very professional. Well, on this virtual thing, if you're not coming to that virtual presentation with the image that represents the profession we're in, and if you're not prepared for the fact that people can see you up front, close, and personal, and if you're a guy and your tie's on sideways, or you're dressed in a t-shirt and baseball cap, which so many agents are today, and if you're a gal and you haven't done your makeup yet, you don't want to go virtual. You want to go, you want to go hide in the closet.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to ask of your agents. You have got them all practicing and role playing. Congratulations. Now I want them to practice doing their presentations virtually so they get used to being in front of a camera, because that's the hardest part of this. You're very comfortable. I can see the comfort level that you're extending sitting here with me today. I'm in front of a camera every day, have been for several years because of the work that you and I do. So the practice of the virtual is going to be the key. When I started this, Rick, on around March 15th, I think this is number 86 of these I've done in the last 40 days. The first couple ones I got off and I said to Sabrina, my 75 years is showing a lot more than I wanted to show. You know, my 3 chins, my wrinkles, my gray hair. I'm used to having a makeup artist when I'm on stage.
Right.
They can cover up all my flaws.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Yeah, right now, watch, everything that we are is showing. So,
yeah, and that's why I don't need extra lights, because I get the shine here now. Yeah, I remember the year, you actually had 2 years where you had about 8 or 10 of us on the stage the whole retreat, and they used to tuck the stuff in your shirt and do your makeup, and I was never that pretty. Again.
We did the best we could.
Yeah, what we had, right, what you had to work with. All right, so these people are kind of I find these people a little entertaining, but you know, the doomsday people, the world is ending, the zombie apocalypse is upon us, the economy is going to end, we're all going to die. What do you do with them? Well,
first of all, they have to understand that the world goes through cycles. The real estate industry, you and I, goes through cycles every 5 to 6 years. The cycle could be different, but 1972 December, I closed 3 escrows in Huntington Beach, California. All 3 were at 18.5% interest to the buyer, 30-year fixed loan. In 1973, FHA interest rate was 21%, 30-year fixed loan. We've been through worse than this, and we made it through. 1987, Black Monday. It was the worst stock market crash in the history of our country. We thought the world was ending. We made it through. For you folks that were from the Northeast, the most horrific day, in my opinion, in our country was 9/11.
Yeah.
Those Twin Towers fell. I mean, it broke the heart and scared the world half to death. We never thought we would recover. We made it through that, okay? 2007 to 2012, weren't those fun times in Las Vegas?
Right.
Trying to find a house that wasn't for sale or being repossessed was the challenge. We made it through that. So, Rick, my son Matthew will remind everybody, this too shall pass.
Right.
Because this will pass.
It will pass.
And
I remember.
Go ahead, please.
I remember 9/11 because I was coaching then, and my 3rd coaching call, someone said to me, "Do you know what's going on right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're on a coaching call." No, turn your TV on. And that was I remember that. And we flew like 8 weeks later to go to the East Coast retreat in Florida. And that was an interesting experience.
In fact, I want to just mention to your crowd that retreat was, I think, 6 weeks later to be exact. And I'm glad you remember. But we had 2,600 tickets we had sold to that retreat in Florida. And I think we had 500 or 600 people attend.
Yeah.
Because people were terrified. And that was understandable. So, you know, we've been through worse. We will have worse in our future. My days for worse are limited because of my age, but for all you young guys and gals, we're going to see worse times. The greatest strength of the American public is resiliency. We can get kicked, we can get knocked down, we can get beat up, but we come back. And that's what we're going to do in 5 to 6 weeks. So I'm excited.
I agree 100%. So for the people that are thinking, you know, should I lower my expectations? Should I adjust my business plan? What would you say to them?
Raise your standards. I mean,
I kind of knew that was coming.
You know, it's interesting, Rick. You and I advocate a one-year business plan.
Yeah.
We advocate you every quarter, you check your plan to make sure you're on track. So, you know, March and April it was tough times, for everybody, mentally more than physically. So I'm asking everybody now in your company to set a 1-month plan for May, a 1-month plan for June. They review it with their coach, yourself, they review it with the managers. Then at the end of June, if they have to adjust, they adjust. But see, the truth is, if they raise their standards and expectations of themselves, business will get better for them. My competition is telling people, actually, throw your plan in the trash. It doesn't count. Are you crazy?
Hey, wait a minute, aren't you related to him?
Yeah, thank you.
I saw that and I was surprised he said that, yes.
I was shocked when I saw that take place, because the truth is, watch, he's never been through anything like we've been through, and that's the difference. Okay.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And obviously, Mike, you know, and I've been around you a long time, and I know you have an incredibly strong mindset. So maybe give them a few ideas of how they could have a stronger mindset as well. I think would be helpful.
Well, you and I grew up under the training of people like Earl Nightingale.
Yeah, you introduced him to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and Earl Nightingale didn't have a strong mindset. His was cement and steel. It was so strong. And Rick, when I was very young, Earl Nightingale said, with that wonderful deep voice, I'm going to give you this advice. In the morning, you have a choice. Be positive or negative. Make the right choice.
Right.
Well, and so every day of my life, when I get up, I consciously say to myself, do I want to have a good day or a bad day?
Right.
I make the decision to have a good day. And I do that every day. But I think too, Rick, you know, for myself, I've never watched the news. I've never listened to the news. I don't get involved in the news. I keep that kind of stuff out. And you've seen me do what I'm going to say next. You've seen me. We'll be standing with a group of people that are, you know, dumping their negative junk on us. And I smile and I nod my head and I don't listen to one word they say. Okay.
Yes. And sometimes you walk away.
Many times I'll walk away. But here's what I would say. You know, this wonderful tool, the iPad, you know, twice a day, if they take their iPad and they go listen to 15 minutes of Tony Robbins or Darren Hardy, or in this case, you, because you're just disseminating all that good information to them every week. They go listen to Earl Nightingale. It's hard to have a negative mindset when you're pouring good stuff into their head. I became an avid reader because of Mike Vance and Gunter Kloss and Earl Nightingale. I'm still an avid reader today. I don't have time for negativity because I'm pushing. Look, I'm sitting here talking to a guy that I've known for 30 years that has gone from here to here in his career. That's Rick Berube. How can you have a negative mindset about that? All I can think is, look at the influence that you're having on people every day. How exciting is this?
It's very exciting. I appreciate it. Yeah, and great mentors I've had like yourself, so thank you very much. You know, I was thinking when you said Earl Nightingale too, you know, like when I figured out the YouTube app on this wonderful thing you pointed out a little while ago, when I figured out the YouTube app, you know that Earl Nightingale has a 45-minute book report on Think and Grow Rich. He also has The Strangest Secret. He also, so if you, I mean, I probably listened to that book report of Earl Nightingale doing the Think and Grow Rich once a month while I'm working out. It's that good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I haven't shared this, Rick, with you or probably most people, but Diana Nightingale, which is Earl's widow, lives in Scottsdale, and we talk all the time and communicate all the time. And she's still trying to carry that great message forward. So, you know, there's so many opportunities for good thoughts if anybody wants to take advantage of. So, if we want to open it up to a Q&A for a few minutes, I look at my clock here and said, I have to do another one in about 15 minutes, so I have a little space here if we want to answer some questions.
Well, that would be great, and I really appreciate that. And as a matter of fact, when you mentioned that, I remember that because I remember when we had Wayne Dyer,
yes,
Deepak Chopra, and then Michael Vance, all within 6 months of each other at those mastermind meetings. Those were incredible. And I think we had her, I think she came to one of those, the last one, I think she came.
Yeah, Diana did.
Yeah. Anyway, awesome stuff. Okay, guys, any questions? You have to unmute yourself because I have muted you. And just a couple of you were unmuted and I had to mute you. It's kind of weird managing these things while they're going on. Questions for Mike? Come on, Amanda, I can see you. Linda Murphy's out there. I see Michelle Klein too.
Rick, I have a question, Rick.
Go ahead. There's John.
Hey, Mike, how should we handle expires and FSBOs during this time?
Well, I'm going to say something that you and Rick will virtually think I've lost my head. With empathy. Because that is not a word that has been part of my life vocabulary. But John, I think the biggest thing is to understand that for sale by owner, their chances of selling themselves today are almost zero, okay? And it's because of home isolation. So now we have to approach them in a little more kinder fashion than that aggressive approach of going right into the pre-qualifying questions. So, you know, you call the for sale by owner and you say, hi, my name is Mike, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. I'm sure you're challenged like the rest of us in getting your home sold. Is that true? And they will go, well, yeah, we're not getting a lot of activity. Gee, may I share what's going on with us and seeing how that's affecting you? Oh, that'd be great. And express to them what's happening in the world of real estate today. But see, with the expired, they have a bigger problem because before they might have 10 agents from your company knocking on the door. Nobody's knocking on the door. So now they're wondering what has happened. So again, the empathy, the understanding, the kindness that we express, John, to these people is more important than ever. And I think the two of you have known me about 70 years. And the last time I said empathy, kindness, and understanding was probably 70 years ago. But it is the mantra that we have today in our conversations with people. Thank you for asking it.
Plus, I have to point out, Mike, do you notice the Good Analytical has the custom backdrop on Zoom?
I saw that.
I'm sorry, John. Good job. I love it. All right, another question, please.
Hi, Mike.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You brushed on the mindset a few minutes ago. Sometimes we go through, during the day, through a period where we lose it. We're humans, after all. What do you recommend to get to snap out of it, to get back on track immediately, without hesitation?
Good question.
Two answers. One is I use the 5-minute rule because there are times when you're overburdened with negativity. So I will just stop and say, I can wallow in this nonsense for 5 minutes and I set the alarm on my phone. When it goes off, it's done. But a friend of mine, Dick Ferry, who I think Rick would remember from Lake Arrowhead, California, he wore a rubber band around his wrist. Every time he had a negative thought, he would snap it. Now think about that one. He would just snap it. We're playing golf one day, and he was a wonderful fellow to play golf with. And all of a sudden, I look over and I see him go whap, and he jumps. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "When I have a negative thought, I snap that rubber band to remind myself not to do it." I said, "Well, do you do it often?" He said, "Well, I used to be so negative that I got a blister where it used to hit." That's when I learned to quit having the negative thoughts. So set up for yourself a couple little triggers that you can use. See, take a 3x5 card and put a plus and a minus on it and keep it with you in front of you as a reminder that the plus is better than the minus. So, you know, you have to many times trick yourself into being positive, but I know that you can do it. And thank you for asking.
Awesome. Great question. And then, you know, also, I think the new Psycho-Cybernetics that you know, one of the books you introduced me to, that's a great book for everything you just went through too.
Yeah, there's two versions, so they know. There's Psycho-Cybernetics,
Yep.
and then there's Psycho-Cybernetics 2000, which is the more modern version, both great.
Yeah.
So Rick, I probably ought to get off this and prepare for my next call. So if I may, I would like to say thanks to a bunch of your agents that called and said, can we get on one of these? And I said, I bet if we get a hold of Mark and Rick, they're going to say yes. So thanks to Mark, thanks to Rick, thanks to Amanda, thanks to all of our great clients and friends. And we wish you nothing but the best. But here's the most important, Rick. I'm going to give you a virtual high five right now. There you go. And I'm looking forward to doing that live instead of on video. So
and Michelle and Amanda joined us on that. I saw them. So.
Well,
All right,
I'll look-
Michael, thank you very much for taking your time. This has been completely awesome, and look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. Appreciate
look
it.
for-
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mike.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mike. It was great.